Howdy, Laoshi Lawrence McElroy here for Water Tiger School in our weekly session for Sachem Library, Water Tiger for Sachem. And, you know, of course, for the greater community, this is our big 4-0. 40 of these puppies since March 23rd of, wait for it, last year. Holy crap, this has been going on for a while. I need a drink. I'll have to settle for some green tea, decaffeinated. So, as you know, hopefully, these are not live at this time. They're pre-recorded. So it's really not January 11th as I sit down and do this. So Lord knows what has happened between the time I'm sitting in front of the camera and we're doing this production, and it launches at 10 a.m. on Monday. But anyway, so there you go. There may be a time when we go live in the future, but I can't promise that. I'm going to do as little talking up front as I can. I want to mention a couple of things, or at least, well, yeah, one thing. One soapbox moment and the other. We were in, take two. We will not have a session next Monday. It will be dark for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. So take a moment during that day and contemplate how his words brought peace and change. And the other thing I want to mention is, you know, as far as I'm going to go today, is just mask up. Stay at home when you can, maintain physical distance, wash your hands. We have to get control of this. So for today's session, we're going to start with a warm-up from Tai Chi Qigong, the stationary family in the coiling set. This is Big Python turns its body. It's kind of complicated, but turning is the theme of the day. You know, we'll work out the footwork first, but you know, the primary instruction is, you know, move your feet as you need to protect your knees. So remember that when we get to that particular exercise. The primary purposes of Tai Chi Qigong help players understand, feel their chi, to be able to start governing their chi, to expand it into the limbs, to open up the 12 primary channels, to loosen up the muscles, especially those surrounding the internal organs. And the coiling set has an additional benefit. There are a couple other things, but the one that I want to mention is it helps to lead the chi to the surface of the skin, building up what we refer to as, and I'm probably going to mispronounce this, wei chi, which is the sort of, if you will, the crunchy shell, protective shell, that helps to keep us well. Wouldn't know why that would be important these days. And then the meat of today is introducing a turn. You know, normally since we started doing these back in March, they've been very linear when we presented walking exercises. And we get to the end of our pass, we close. We don't have to, you know, while we're all, especially in the winter months now, inside all the time, we have small practice spaces. And if we want to do a floor exercise, a walking exercise, it may, you know, become a little monotonous to, you know, take 4 steps, close, turn around, and take 4 steps, close, turn around. So you can keep going. You still have to close if you're doing walking the rails. There's not a way to turn and maintain the integrity of the exercise. But if it's in the Tai Chi stance, the mountain climbing stance, the cat stance, whatever you want to call it, you can turn. As a matter of fact, it's a turn that we use in various forms. You know, the basic 24 posture form from Water Tiger School in Grasp Sparrow's Tail. Also the first form that we do in the studio, and the second form and the third form, etc. It's sort of what we refer to as the minor transition. It's what I call the swimmer's turn. Because when I was growing up, I wasn't on a swim team or anything. Our school did not have a swim team, didn't have a swimming pool for that matter. But I did like to swim, and I was always impressed by those people who could, you know, swim to the edge of the pool and do that fancy little turn and push off and go the other way. I never got that. Well, I can do this turn, so it's my, I don't know, revenge. So let's go. I said I wasn't going to talk very long, but if you know me, you know that wasn't very long for me. So I'm going to take off a couple things. Lose my socks. Well, hopefully I won't lose them until they go in the dryer, and then one always disappears. And take off my sweatshirt. So this week's t-shirt, I sort of forgot about these. Water Tiger School back in the day, St. Jude. Would do a fundraiser. We do marathon Tai Chi, non-stop Tai Chi, at live after 5 in Patchogue Village on Long Island in the state of New York in the country of the United States. And we take an evening and we do more or less, I want to say 4 hours of Tai Chi and Qigong continuously to raise money for St. Jude. So I have a handful of these t-shirts. If you know Lawrence McElroy and Water Tiger School, you also know back about 15 years ago, I did a lot of bike rides, including the New York City Century and the 5 boroughs, as well as the annual MS fundraiser ride. And I had several of those t-shirts. However, those t-shirts became my workout shirts. And let's just say there's not much t-shirt left in any of them. So you won't be seeing those. You might catch glimpses of them if you go to the YouTube channel and look at at some of the physical training and stretching videos. But anyway, shake out. Just want to get a little blood and oxygen going before we start. Big Python turns its body. So it's sort of, I wouldn't want to say that it's built, but it will remind people of turn heaven and earth in front of the body from our breathing set, which then leads to Golden Rooster twists its wings, which then leads to turn your head to look at the moon. All of those have been warm-ups since March. And that's what, 9 months? Going on 10, almost. And, you know, if you're here from the Sachem Library program, though obviously we're going to, you know, we've missed pretty much this whole year. Come February, I believe it's 22nd, that will mark 19 years that the program has been part of the library. So Big Python turns its body is a wider stance. And the footwork, as you turn to one direction, you're going to turn, this is my suggestion. Again, the original instructions say turn your feet as you need to protect your knees. But my suggestion is turn on the heel of the front foot first so those toes go out. And then as you continue your turn on the ball of the back foot, kicking that heel back. See that? Right? Turn on the heel of the foot in the direction you're turning. And then turn on the ball, kicking the heel out, adjusting that foot. And then when you come back through center, heel of the front foot to forward, ball of the back foot brings that heel in, this heel in, and then heel of what is now becoming the front foot and turning out on the ball of the back foot, kicking that heel back and in that direction. Coming forward, heel, ball, heel, ball. Now you might want to do a variation of that too, depending upon your own knees. You might want to start turning forward and do the adjustment of the ball foot first and then the heel foot. Heel, ball, ball, heel. So sort of play with that. And of course, there are all sorts of other options that you could use. Just trust your body to tell you what you need to protect your knees. So that's the lower body. Right? And I'm using the second version first, and now I'll do the first version that I presented. So whichever works. I actually sort of like the second more, but I wanted to give you options. But again, choose what works for you. Now, if you know, turn heaven and earth in front of the body. It's the one that looks like this. Palm up, palm down. They stay on the center line. They both reach their extension at the same time. Golden Rooster takes the hand that's going down and wraps it around the hip, and ideally ends on the center line. And so if I face away from you and do it, it looks something like this. Turn your head to look at the moon in the direction I am in the direction of the, let me start again. The hand is going up. I'm going to stop. I'm going to go back to that left first. As I twist the upper body, keeping the hips still, and keeping the hand in the orientation with my nose. So I'm not pulling the hand back away from my head, I'm keeping it on that line. Putting that lower body with the upper body, that movement looks something like this. So find your stance, broader than shoulder wide probably for most people. It's a little bit easier on knees, a little bit more narrow. So judge that as well according to you. We're going to float the hands into position. A few breaths here. And then find an inhalation to activate the wrists, and then an exhalation. And then an inhale, left on the left, right on the right, fingertips mostly forward, coming to the center line, one hand above the other. The hand that's above is the direction we're going to turn. So as the hands begin to split, the rising hand starts to go up in front, the descending hand starts to slide around that hip, and there's the end of the turn. And again, notice, just like before, except now my hips are turning, that upper hand is still, the center of my palm is still aligned with the line of my nose, my center line. Coming back through, palm down above, palm up below. They're coming toward one another, turning on the heel in the direction I'm going first. Then the ball of the foot, extending the legs, protecting the knees. Boom, coming back. And do the ball heel to start with. Heel, ball. Here's two. Maybe an exhalation as you're doing this extension, and an inhalation. Now I'm going to do the heel, ball version. An exhalation. Breath and movement should be consistent. In other words, there's no stop. It's a Water Tiger School part of this set, is to maintain movement. Once it starts, it doesn't stop. I'm really not sure where I am, but that's either 4 or 5 pairs. Heel, ball, heel, ball. And that's the first version I showed you of the feet. Heel, ball of the back foot, heel, ball. Returning the same way that you went. The other version I'll do now, coming back, adjusting the back foot first, then adjusting the front foot. Moving into the front foot, extending the back heel by turning on the ball of the foot. Then bringing the back foot back into mostly forward, and then the front foot into mostly forward. Just 2 more pair. Let's make them aces. So if the movement is supposed to be continuous here, that means, and breath, hands and end of turn should all match one another. Exhaling, turning, extending the arms, inhaling, unturning, is that a word? Last one, last side. So this time, coming in, one set of toes forward, other set of toes forward, hands coming in, swinging down. Moment. Now, if you're wide like me, you might want to move the feet a little bit closer together, and you'll notice that the turning, my feet sort of got out of alignment. They're not even with one another. But if you're not too wide, you can probably close without an issue. And there you go. Big Python turns its body from the family of Tai Chi Qigong known as Stationary T'ai Chi Qigong, and the subset of that called the coiling set. So this turn, this swimmer's turn, we need to find a way to change the direction we are walking in the Tai Chi walk. But before we do that, for those who may not be familiar with Water Tiger School's Tai Chi stance, forward moving stance, let us review. Feet are shoulder wide. Water Tiger School defines shoulder width by where the drop of the shoulder is on both sides, should split the heels in half. Right? Some people define shoulder width as being outside of the shoulders. Some people define shoulder width as being inside of the shoulders. We're right at that drop, not on the outside of the delts, not on the top of the trap, but right at that initial decline. Right? So that's it. And it's determined by the heels, not the balls of the feet. If I swing the heels in and the balls of my feet, my Lao Gong points are still more or less, they're a little bit inside that, but if I center them up here or there, even though the Lao Gong points, the balls of my feet are on my blue lines, on my shoulder width distance, I am not shoulder wide because my heels are closer together. Right? Heels mark our width. And for Water Tiger School, width is much more important than length. Right? You can have whatever length you need as long as you're shoulder wide. That being said, if you need to be a little bit inside of your shoulder width or a little bit outside your shoulder width, fine. See, we're pretty flexible here. Not only in our approach to what it is that we're doing, but Tai Chi helps with flexibility. I don't know why I'm so thirsty this afternoon. I apologize. Actually, you wouldn't know it's afternoon, but it is. As we are doing this production, me and the 150 people that are involved in everything behind the scenes. Wink, wink, nod, nod, you know what I mean. All right, so the back foot, what's going to be the back foot, turns out to around a 45. Same thing as shoulder width. Ideally, it should be at a 45. Not forward, not at a 90-degree angle pointing to the wall directly to your side, but around the halfway point. So, again, 45 is ideal, but if you need to shallow it up a little bit or broaden it a little bit, that's okay. Broaden usually challenges people more. Most people have to shallow it up a little bit. We put enough weight in that foot, step the other foot slightly forward. Now notice as I'm placing that, my toes are pointing directly toward you, directly toward my device. They can also turn in toward my center line. See how they came inside the blue line? What you don't want, well, you can't really see the blue line. Now you can, right? Inside the blue line. You don't want them there at this moment. That would be bad for your knee. The other thing that would be bad for your knee as you turn forward is to simply push the knee sideways or tuck the back knee in. Let me face you to do that, right? I'm not doing that. That would be bad. Knee over ankle, safest. Knee over the top of the foot, acceptable, depending upon the health of your knee. Knee over or beyond toes, bad. Tai Chi is often recommended to people who have knee issues and can actually reverse previous damage. Studies have shown. However, Tai Chi done improperly, if you come to Tai Chi with healthy knees, they won't stay that way. The nice thing is your knees will start to sing a song. And it's not going to be a very pleasant song. And if you listen to them and then go, okay, what were those knee caveats that Lawrence gave me? Let's see, there was something about toes. It was, I think, toes forward. Oh, oops. You make that adjustment and it will reverse that bad song that your knees are singing. So I turn my hips to square off my hips. My hips and my shoulders are indeed right side to side, directly pointing to the wall to your left, directly pointing to the wall to your right, or whatever's on your left and your right. So I got about 70% of the weight on my front leg, got about 30 or 40% of the weight on the back leg. You can go as high as 80-20 or as low as 60-40, but that's sort of stretching it a bit. Boom, hips square, shoulders square, chest sunk, back rounded, chin from parallel, slight tuck down, crown pointing the head over the base of the pelvic bowl. To get from one stance to the other is a process. Right? When I step, I really want my nose, my belly button, and the knee of my weighted foot, in this case my right foot, all pointed the same direction at the 45. I want to be so familiar with my shoulder width that I don't have to look to know, hey, look, my heel hit exactly where it was supposed to be. Now, my toes are still pointed to the 45 because the way that I turn forward to fill that foot is I turn, as the hips rotate, it rotates that foot and it settles down with toes forward. You can also, if you're not sure, you don't want to push it, you can lay the entire instep down with the toes pointed forward. And then as you turn forward, you can roll into a flat foot, hitting the 3 nail points. Ball, outer instep, and heel all sort of roll into that final position. You can also just set the foot down and point the toes forward and then roll from the heel through the instep into the ball of the foot. But all of those positions get us to that point where the toes are forward. 1 is the step, 2 is the stance. So I'm at 2, right? 1, 2, 3, I rock back. 4 is another tricky knee moment because I want to open up the quad where the inner upper thigh comes into contact with the pelvic bowl, like the pages of a book. So it means my right hip is actually turning back, as my left hip is also turning back. So the quad, lower abdominals, the groin, a little bit more harsh word than quad, open up like the pages of the book. It keeps that knee pointed the same direction as those toes. Keeps this knee pointing the same direction as those toes. That's 4. 5 is coming up to the opposite 45, or thereabouts. 1 is the step, 2 is the stance, 3 is the rock back, 4 is that pivot opening up the quad like the pages of the book, and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, and now I'm at that point, my head's about right at the top of the screen. So unless I want to be headless, I'd better turn and go back the other direction. There are a multitude of ways to do this. Let's close first. So that closing that we did at the end of Big Python, I really didn't talk about. Hands release from wherever they are. When we do a normal walking exercise, we usually have the hands in one of 5 places. The belly, cupped, not interlocked, left over right, right over left. Hands on the hips. That's my place so folks can see, where my hips are going. Behind the back, that's my favorite place when I'm doing things just for me. Palm down, like they were floating for the exercise. Lightly closed fists, palms forward, not in, not back. Definitely not just hanging. But anyway, the hands release from where they are. They float up, out, away from the body. That foot is tied to those hands, and you can either bring the back foot forward or the forward foot back. But you want to feel both like puppet and puppeteer. Heels still in the air. I'm going to press that heel down. I'm lowering my body this time. And raising up, and there goes my forehead and my eyes. Boom. And that brings the hands to the belly. So you want that full movement. So when I get to the end of a pass, I'm sure there are other methods. Whoops, that's 4. We usually do 3. It's 3. If I can find a place on the screen. All right, 3 of them. Or I could just come up here. See, 3. And those 3, they have names. You have the 2-part turn, which is the way that we suggest. Of course, there's actually 4. There is 4. That's probably why I did that. We have the 2-point turn. We have the step back. And all this is because Most of us cannot be in this stance and turn and bring that foot all the way to the 45. See, I didn't do it. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't. Maybe I can do it with the left foot. I doubt it, but we'll see. Nope. Right, so if you can do that, if you can be in this stance and bring those toes from there to pointing at that diagonal in that direction. Let's really work at it here. Let's see. It's close. Oops, my heel slipped, but there it is. Yes, I can get it to the 45. Right, if you can do that, fine, freak. More power to you. The rest of us, normal people, will do one of the other three methodologies. The two-part turn is the one that I suggest. Now, the lines don't actually sort of serve on some of these because you're moving between ball and heel. But the two-part turn is, I'm going to go from where I am, I'm going to turn part of the way to the 45, and I'm very deeply pigeon-toed here. My right heel's still on, I don't think I started on my blue line, so I'm a little bit inside of it. I'll make that adjustment. Boom, let me do that again. There you go. So I'm a little past the 90, very pigeon-toed. Weight to do that was in the back foot, in this case my left foot. I'm going to settle the weight into the right foot. I'm going to step, oops. Talking and doing this at the same time is harder than it looks. Take 3. Turn, settle, step, and there I am at the other blue line. And as I turn to fill the front foot, as soon as I have enough governance, because the front foot is down, I turn on the back heel a second time. A two-part turn. So now I've got about 70% of the weight on my front leg, about 30% of the weight on my back leg. It's at around the 45. My left toes are forward, my hips and my shoulders are square. So twice on the heel. The thing is, now I say, bring your foot as far around as possible, but don't force the muscles and the tendons to do that work. You want to relax. You want to let the swing take care of itself, and the swing of the body bring the toes, and you'll get farther than you would if you activate the muscles. The muscles work against your flexibility. Step, fill the front foot, turn on the back heel, and you're in your 4 stance. 2 times on the heel. Other direction. Why don't I face you again. Right? So now this happens to be my left foot. I had an interesting request in a remote class that's going away at the end of February from a participant. We changed curriculum because it was an ongoing program like the Sachem program has been. But they're ending it. So I had 8 weeks. Water Tiger School has 8 weeks with these folks, and I had changed curriculum so I could give them something that they would be able to do from beginning to end before we parted company. So the work, the play in the classes sort of changed, and I'm making a lot of references left and right and that sort of thing. And the student asked for me to mark my left shoulder with something that would make it distinct, so she would always know which was my left side. So maybe if you think that would be helpful during these sessions, post it in the comments. Again, remember on YouTube, we restrict the comments. Your comment will not go live until it's previewed. We had too much issue in the early days with spam, so we just do check all comments before posting. But as long as it's not spam, and even if it's a flame, well, depending upon the degree of the flame, we'll let it go by. We just don't want any spam. So spam, 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 spam. There you go. Your little Monty Python reference for the day. Turning on that, bouncing the weight into the back foot, happens to be the right, bringing those left toes around, bouncing the weight into the left foot, stepping to my shoulder width. I missed it because I'm inside of my shoulder width on this side. Wow, this is not a good day for Lawrence. Let's do that again. Boom, boom, front toes, back toes. I think my 2 sets of squares are a little bit off, aren't they? Yeah, this one is wider than the other one. think, because I do this before and I have lots of time, and I've been doing this now for how long? April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. That's 10 digits that I would get this set right. Boom, boom. That's better. Right, twice on the heel. So that's the primary way that we use. Now this time the blue lines won't matter because I'm going to turn, it's a 2-point turn. I'm going to turn on the heel first and then the ball of the foot to reset the foot. Keep in mind, when we turn on these, the heels and the balls, doesn't matter if it's the ball of the foot or the heel of the foot. A lot of times we think, oh, I'm turning on the entire heel. That would be the wrong approach. You want to imagine a very small point, you know, something like the point of a pen, and imagine that's your contact point, that's your pivot point, not the entire heel, not the entire ball, but just that little point. And you put all the energy and all the emphasis on that point. So a 2-point turn, I turn on the heel part way, then I turn on the ball. That foot is now at around 45, but notice because I turn on the ball, well, I'm pretty close to remaining on that line. Step, and now my back foot doesn't have to be adjusted. And I step right into my 4 stance. So again, heel, ball, step, turn. And I don't have to adjust my back foot. I didn't quite get it to the 45, but it's close enough that I can still square off the hips. That's about a 48-degree angle. So the other direction, heel, ball, step, and again that foot is at around the 45. Heel, ball, step, boom. Heel, ball, step, boom. And notice when you do this, if you do it properly, every time you turn, you're going to move shoulder width away from where you started. So that's method 2. Method 3 is a backward step. We do something like this in Water Tiger Schools 24 to get from, we have a moment where we're in Golden Rooster 2, we step to the 45, things sort of open up. That was a little bit more dramatic than it needed to be. Form the ball, step back and through, ball of the foot lines inside of your shoulder width. Heel lands at shoulder width, you turn, back toes come around, you turn, front toes come around, and you end in the first fair lady. So that's what we mean by the backward step. If I am here and I don't have a great range of motion, by great I just mean distance, I don't mean that it's really good. Right? Whatever your range of motion is your range of motion. No judgment here. It's just what your range of motion is, what your body dynamic is, what your flexibility is. Maybe, like me, sometimes there are certain turns that I cannot do because I have a lot of metal in that left ankle and top of foot. So maybe that's the case. You have a lot of screws, a lot of plates, that sort of thing in an ankle, so you don't have the flexibility someone else might have. So I turn what little I can. So notice I'm just inside a parallel just slightly. And I step in such a way that the ball of my foot lands inside my shoulder width, but the heel lands at my shoulder width. And then I turn on the back foot, pigeon toe, turn on the front foot, 4 stance. So that's the backward step in the turn. Heel a little bit, step back and through, heel lands at shoulder width. Going to turn on the back foot on the heel, 45, turn on the front foot on the heel, and I'm in my 4 stance. So if I happen to do that here, I'm going to face away from you now and turn toward you. Heel as far as I can. Ball of the foot inside of shoulder width, heel lands at shoulder wide, back foot, 45, front foot, 4 stance. So whenever you get to the end of your pass, you no longer have to close, turn around, and come back the other direction. Close, turn around, and come up back the other direction. The only thing, the turn, you don't have to worry about balancing your steps. Water Tiger School is really big on balancing your steps. First step to the left, last step to the right. If you are still going, doesn't matter which foot you are on when you get to the end of your pass, because you're still moving. You still want to end on a right foot when you do decide to close. The one consideration there is remembering that you are moving shoulder width every time you do this. So if you're always turning on both walls at a shoulder width distance that moves you sideways across the room, you're gonna go off your track and maybe have to step around the sofa or a coffee table or something. So that's just another consideration. So the 3 turns are, do this one. 2 parts, turn on the heel part way, step, turn on the heel the other part of the way. 2 point turn, turn on the heel part way, turn on the ball of the foot to get that foot to the 45, set that heel down, step, and you're already in 4 stance. 2 point turn, the step backwards turn as far as you can, step with the ball of the foot backwards inside of your shoulder width, heel lands at shoulder width, turn on the back foot, pigeon-toed, turn on the front foot, 4 stance. And that way you can keep on walking. So there you go, folks. A little Tai Chi Qigong, big python turns its body, and the swimmer's turn from the Water Tiger School perspective. As I said, there are probably other ways to turn. Those are the 3, or really 4, if you do have the ability to get that foot to the 45. I hope that was helpful. It can also prepare people who are currently learning the 24 with what is on the horizon as far as that turn. But it is an important aspect of what we do at Water Tiger School. We're big on floor exercises. And a little anecdote here. We train in that turn early on so we can utilize the space of the studio. And every so often, I remember one instance, and that's the one that popped into my head, when somebody had been doing that and playing our first form. So had been doing the turn and the walking exercises through, I think 3 forms at that point. And the 3 forms that utilize the turn. And she was doing the walking exercise one day in class, and she's like, oh my gosh, that's the same turn as the minor transition in all the forms I've been playing. Sure is. So anyway, there you go. Swimmer's turn for you. Utilizing your space. Now, the other thing to keep in mind, and I'm pretty sure we did a session on this. Yes. I don't remember the date. I didn't look it up. On utilizing the space you have and making sure that you make those changes in a Tai Chi-like fashion. As opposed to, if you're not really paying attention or don't think that that's important, what you find yourself doing in a particular space is, you're somewhere where I have to turn and go the other direction, right? So if I was going to do the swimmer's turn here, I would end up having to step on the bicycle. So you realize, you're doing a form, you're here, you have to turn and face the other direction. It's like, oh crap. That's not how you want to reset. How you want to reset is take that step, adjust, and step back the other direction. Which is actually then a 5th way to turn and change directions. But you want to keep it connected. You want to keep it through the whole body. And there you go. And the swimmer's turn is actually a way to start to build that particular skill. It's just an adjustment, a tweak, a deepening of your understanding of how that turn unfolds. So thank you, everyone. As always, I hope this was helpful. I hope it was at least slightly entertaining. It's not all jokes, but I have to throw them in once in a while. Though, as I often say in the room, my wife would question what I if I really have a sense of humor or not. So anyway, thanks. Take care. Mask up. Stay safe. Stay healthy. And keep listening to, science. Science is good. They don't always get it right, but they admit when they've gotten something wrong. Others tend not to do that. So, thanks. Take care. Again, nothing next week. We are dark on the 18th for Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And we'll be back on, all things being equal, on the 25th for the next session. As a heads up, we'll have a Monday off in February for President's Day, and there will be a Monday off in March. My annual spring vacation is on the calendar. I'm not sure if we'll actually be able to travel this year, but I'm going to take the week regardless because I kind of need it. So take care, stay safe. Talk to you next time.